Well, this morning I've decided to sit by the lake rather than walk. The snow's melted, but it's kind of cold. It's warmed up over the last couple of days. Somehow, though, the quietness of winter snow seems to be calming in some way. This is Kay. We were talking about how you need to know where you're at. This addiction to alcohol and drugs, it seems like it's happening to your child or your loved one or your partner or your friend. It's really happening to everybody around that person. And I wish I had an answer. Like, if you do A, B, and C, everything will be fine and that person will be released from the horrible grip of this disease. I don't have that answer. What I have is experience in making my life better through a process of self-discovery and really honestly taking a hard look at some of my own issues and my enabling of my loved one with the disease. My son is a drug addict, and as I discussed previously, I made all sorts of excuses as to why I should enable him. And it's really horrible because in our culture, we're taught, especially as women, and a lot of times in these situations when it involves children, you'll see that the woman wants to enable and the man wants to put their foot down and draw strict lines and, is much more harsh and pragmatic approach, and women tend to be way more enabling. However, the odd thing being, when you remove the woman from the equation, then the man becomes the enabler. I guess someone has to be the voice of reason. What you'll find is, what I found in my experience is, everything in life, as you're growing and becoming an adult, you have obstacles. You learn to put your head down and move forward. And in our culture, especially for women, as I was saying, we're taught to be kind, to be generous, that makes you a good person, to support someone else, to be generous in what you give them, to care for them. We consider that to be nurturing. And so our society teaches us to be enabling in some ways, because in this circumstance, with the nature of this disease, it amounts to loving them to death. My son is fortunate to have survived my attempts at being a good parent, at being a generous parent, because it is very likely that he would not have. There are many children who do not survive their parents' generosity. One of the things that became a turning point in my son's illness, now mind you, he went through numerous recovery programs, and it wasn't very long after he had left the program, and they always released him early because he was doing such a fine job of mimicking everything that they said, of doing all of the daily readings, of the psychological work that he needed to do. And the minute he was back out in the regular population, he was right back to his addiction. And these are professionals. These are people who are well trained to deal with addiction. What they can't do, what they know they can't do, is change someone else. And neither can you, and neither can I. Once my son was in the hospital because he had a spider bite that was pretty badly infected. And I was there with him, and I had left the room for a while, and when I came back in, I heard him on his phone. He was actually calling someone to bring him drugs to the hospital. And I thought, well, that's insane. The hospital already has all of these drugs. But those weren't the drugs that he wanted. I flew off the handle and I said that this disease might be stronger than him, but I wasn't going to tolerate this anymore, that I couldn't handle it, that he had broken me, and that he didn't have any intention of being clean, and I was done. I was absolutely done. And I stormed out of that hospital room, got in my car, and drove away as fast as I could for about 10 miles. And then I turned around and I went back. I went back into that hospital room. And I said to him, I know this disease is strong. And it might be stronger than you. But it is not stronger than me. But I was wrong. It was stronger than me. It was so much stronger than me, and I didn't have an understanding of that at the time. I was still in the phase of believing that, well, if he really loved me, he wouldn't hurt me this way. That all he had to do was make a different choice. He just had to choose not to do the drugs, not to have that drink. It took me a long time to realize, as miserable as he was, and a lot of people will say, oh, they're getting high, they're having a good time. No, they're not. They're getting high. For a few moments at a time, they're escaping the incredible mental pain that they're in. This is not a party life. This is not, wow, isn't this great? No. This is intense pain and doing anything they can possibly do to mute that pain in any way that they possibly can. But to me, because I'm not an addict, I thought, just make a different choice. Choose not to do the drugs. Go through the sickness. Get better on the other side. There's so much that you have to live for. I didn't understand the pain or the illness he was experiencing inside. I think of myself as a relatively intelligent person. And so one day, just out of a common sense approach, I thought to myself, if on one hand you could have a wonderful life with a nice home, nice cars, good friends, a good job, a good time, or on the other hand, you could be dirty, unkept, unnourished, unwell, in pain, and miserable, which one would you choose? Any able-bodied person, mentally intact, would choose the first choice. No one would choose what addicts and alcoholics revert to. If they were able to take a clear-eyed look at it, no one would actively choose that. My son was not making a bad choice. He had no choice to be made. He was in the throes of something that was deceiving him. And because of the pain that he felt, he chose to believe what the disease was telling him. And the disease was telling him, well, if I just do a little bit more drug right at this moment, I'll feel better and I won't ever do this again, and I will get on the road to recovery and I will be able to handle this. And that lie was told to him by his disease over and over and over again. Did he want to believe it? Yes. That's the only reason he believed it. Because he couldn't see any other choices. He didn't see any other way out. I think in some ways he wanted his life to be over because he didn't have a grip on it, and he knew it, but he just couldn't figure out what to do about it. Now, if the person ingesting the chemicals that are causing all of the problems cannot figure out how to stop it, what chance do you think I had of stopping it? In someone else? Yeah, you can pour out all the bottles you want. You can destroy every needle you find. You can try to keep someone locked in a room or in a building or in a recovery program. But until they are inspired by whatever greater forces exist in the universe to get clean, they are not going to get clean. They're not going to do it because they don't love you. They are not going to do it because they do love you. This is the nature of the disease. It has nothing to do with you. You can't make it go away. You can't make it better. You can, however, make it much, much worse by doing all of the wrong things. I say to this day, the biggest part of my recovery program is sitting on my hands, not fixing things, not jumping into action the minute I think that someone needs something or something in particular in my mind that I think will help needs to happen. That's my disease. When I stopped doing that, it was amazing because my son started getting better. My son was arrested and he went to jail, which I had managed to keep from happening for nearly 10 years. And he ended up in jail, not with huge charges, but he had already had charges that had left him on probation. So when he went to jail this time, I had called his probation officer because my son had said that he had been talking to him about getting into a recovery program. I didn't know anything about that. His probation officer told me not to do anything, to stand down, that he had a program that he wanted to get my son into, and that I should let him do what needed to be done. And I agreed. I agreed because everything I had done up to this point had not helped. It had hurt him. It had did a lot of damage to my own life. So he ended up in a program. But before that, he had called me from the jail and he had asked me if I would bail him out. And I said, no. He said, my bail is only $1,000. And I said, I made a decision that I am never going to do anything for you that I don't think is in your best interest. And I don't think that you being out of jail at this moment would be in your best interest. I will come visit you. I love you. But I'm not going to do that. He later told me that if I had bailed him out, he probably wouldn't be alive. Because that's how this works. I had become the person that my son ran to every time he needed help. I was the one that he asked for money, that he asked for help, that he asked for everything. He didn't have a higher power because I was in the way. As long as I was there, in the way, doing all the wrong things, he didn't have to reach out to a higher power. He didn't have to look at himself or anything around him because Mama was always fixing it. Only you know what? I wasn't fixing it. I was making it way worse. And the reason I was doing it was because of my illness. Because of my need to try to control and fix things. Letting go was what I needed to do. It's what I should have done years before I did. The fact that my son survived my holding on, that was just luck. That was a higher power looking out for me and for him. So are you willing to let go? It's hard. Sometimes you can only do it in little bits at a time. But it is the one and only thing that you can do for your loved one that will really help them. I am not saying abandon them. I am not saying stop loving them. The only thing I really had to give my son that was useful to him was my love. And everything else I was giving him, well, it was killing him. I was killing him. So I guess what you need to think about now is where you are and what you're willing to let go of. And you know, they say the only thing your new life will cost you is your old one. I'm hoping this is helping. Have a good evening.